This time around, we're going to take a look at type on a path, and this works way back to Photoshop CS. So you got 4 versions of Photoshop that it works for. But more importantly, I want to take a look at this in terms of problems that I've had with the tool, because I have issues with this tool. It's got a couple of little nuances with it that I think are worth kind of getting through, because once you figure out how to use it, it becomes much more powerful. I figure if I had these problems, then I sure hope somebody else has had the problems as well. So very simple here. Let's start off just with a basic path. I'll just make a wavy path, take my type tool, and this is type on a path. All right, and it wraps my text along the path that I create here. All right, so just took the pen tool, I select the paths option right up here in the top options bar, and I can draw a path and I can make my type conform to it. All right, so here's the problem. The time where I see this used the most is with logos, and usually circular logos. This is really one of the times where people find that they want to put text on a path the most, because they want to put some type inside of here and they want to put some type down here at the bottom, and that's where it gets a little bit tricky. Okay, so, and then positioning it gets a little bit tricky. So got some tips for you here. Let's first off create a path, and you can do that with your shape tools. I could take my ellipse tool, set the paths option here, and I could draw an ellipse on the screen here and kind of move it around and fit it into place. Or I can do a selection. Command or control click on this layer, go to the paths palette, and just click the little icon at the bottom. It turns a selection into a path. Okay, so now I have a path here, and I can actually use free transform, Command or Control T, and I can bring this path in a little bit. Okay, and I'm holding down Option Shift to do that. All right, so I can bring my path in a little bit, and now once I hit enter or return, I've got a path ready to have some text on it. So let's grab the type tool, and when I bring my cursor close to the path, you'll see it changes to like a little I-beam with a bar through it. That means I'm ready to start typing, because there is no official type on a path tool inside of Photoshop. All right, it's just you use the type tool, and when you put it over a path, it then becomes type on a path. So I'm going to click. And let's go ahead and let's call this Sierra Coffee. I don't think I spelled coffee right. F-F-E-E, company. All right. And I'm going to select all, Command or Control A, change my type to white, because it is still going to be editable text. And that's the nice part about this, is I can always edit that. But here's where we get into some weird stuff, because I want this text to be centered more. Okay, and instead of rotating the text, there's a better way to do it. You just got to know what tool to use, and it's not immediately apparent. You don't go to the type tool to do this. All right, you go to the tool right below it. It's called the path selection tool. You can use the direct selection tool, but you might inadvertently select your path and a point and do something to it. So I find it easier to use the path selection tool. And you see this little dot right there? It shows up where you clicked. If I click on it and I start to drag it, nothing happens. All right, but when I click on it and bring it all the way around, now things start to disappear. Okay, but there's more, because there's not just that point. There is this little bar right next to it. And when I click on this and start to drag it, see how my text starts to move. Okay, so now I can rotate it around the path, and I can fit it into place and get it to appear the way that I envisioned it to go, not kind of lopsided off to one side. And then you just got to kind of be aware of these things. I wish there was something easier to tell you, but there's not. They just get weird. You saw what happened when I clicked on this guy. Whoop, not the path. You saw what happened when I took my, let's get back to my text here. You saw what happened when I took my path selection tool and I click on that little circle and I start moving that. And if I get it over a word, the word disappears. Not just a letter, but the whole word. I don't really know why the whole word goes away. Okay, it's a little bit weird, but just kind of know that it happens. And once you know what happens, you can avoid it. And then the other thing is as you start to drag this side, well, if I wanted to go all the way around, you'll notice that when I start to hit that dot, I go beyond it, my text disappears as well. So if you're dragging these things around and your text is just disappearing on you, just kind of be aware that you've got these two little things that will help you drag your text around. And that when you start to intersect them, or when you start to intersect them with the text, weird things start to happen. Okay, that's the best way that I can put it, is weird things start to happen. So just know that they're there, and know that this is how you move your text, and know that it's going to take a little bit of practice to get used to which one to drag. Now, the next thing that comes up is people say, well, I don't want my text on the outside of the path. I want it on the inside of the path. That one's really easy. Just go near that point, and when you see your I-beam with the arrow appear, click and just drag it inward. Okay, when you're on the inside of the path, it goes on the inside. When you're on the outside of the path, it goes along the outside. Okay, so just click and drag. And that's what gets weird again, because you might be trying to rotate your text, and if you rotate it and you just so slightly go inside like that, it screws it all up. And that's why people start to get really frustrated with this tool. Okay, so just kind of be a little bit more, I'm blatant about it. You know, when I'm rotating it, I keep it way outside. All right, and then when I want it to go inside, I take it way inside, and that usually makes it a little bit easier to control for me. All right, so now we've got one more thing we want to do here. I want to put some text at the bottom. All right, and when you see me do this, you're going to realize what the problem is with doing this. All right, so let's go over to the paths palette. That's my text. That's my path for the Sierra Coffee Company. I'm going to click on the other work path here, and I'm going to click on the path, and let's put Mountain Grown. Okay, you can already see what starts to happen. Let's go back to our path selection tool, and I'll take this, and I'll start to maneuver it around, and then, of course, that's the circle. There's still the bar over here, which did not go with it. So I'll take that and start to move it around. Now, I can get it to appear at the bottom. That's cool. The problem is it's upside down. So what do I do to get it on the inside? Because if I get it on the inside, look at that, albeit in the wrong place. Once I get it on the inside and I start to rotate, see, it even happened to me. Let's bring this one around. And once I get it on the inside, and I start to rotate this around a little bit, I can actually get my text to appear in the right spot, and I can get it to be readable because it's not upside down anymore. Okay? But the problem is it's also not on the outside of my path. It doesn't line up with the other text inside of here. It starts to encroach in on the logo, which is not what I want. So the way around this is actually nothing to do with the type on a path tool or any tool here in the toolbox. Okay, the way around this is to remember that this is text. So if I double click on that type layer, it selects my text. I go to Window, I go down to Character. Inside the Character palette, I have this option called Baseline Shift. It's on the bottom left here. And if I just start hitting my down arrow key, watch my type. See how it starts to shift down toward the bottom. Okay? So now I'm actually moving it toward the outside of the path. I'm not increasing the size of the text. I'm not stretching the text. I'm not doing anything like that. I'm just moving it down toward the bottom edge of the path. Okay? And when I deselect the type and I look at it, you'll see that now it goes along the path. So now my text is aligned. It's aligned to the outside edge of the path, but the bottom is readable because it's not upside down anymore. Okay? So couple of different things here. First off, getting the type onto the path, which is pretty easy. Most people can get to that point. But when you want to start manipulating where your text is going, make sure you go to that path selection tool and make sure you realize that each block of text that you have here has a bar on it, which controls where your text is going to go. Okay? And it's also got that little circle, which also controls where your text is going to go. And you're going to have to play kind of a little battle game between that bar and that circle to maneuver your text around the path to get it into the right place. Okay? And if you want to flip it onto the inside, I showed you how to get it on the inside. And finally, if you do get it to where you want something to be at the bottom of the path, then you're going to have to tweak that baseline shift option a little bit to kind of get it to appear that way, because Photoshop's going to fake it and put it on the inside. All right, so I hope that I've helped with some of the little issues with type on a path. I know that there are things that I've battled with in the past. Hopefully some of you have as well. And in the end, it is a very powerful tool. Once you know how to use it, you'll find that you'll start to use it more and more.